Hey, Kristen, how's it tracking?
With Carvana Value Tracker.
What else?
Oh, it's tracking. In fact, Value Surge Alert trucks up 2.5%. Vans down 1.7.
Just as predicted.
Mm-hmm.
So, we gonna...
I don't know. Could sell, could hold.
The power to always know our car's worth.
Exhilarating, isn't it?
Tracking.
Always know your car's worth with Carvana Value Tracker.
What happens when your cervix does not change for 12 hours during labor? You will find out in this birth story episode with Nicole. Welcome to the All About Pregnancy and Birth podcast. If you're having a baby in the hospital, you are giving birth in a system that too often takes away power from women over what happens in their own bodies. I'm Dr. Nicole Calloway Rankins, a practicing board-certified OBGYN who's had the privilege of helping well over 1,000 babies into this world. I've been a doctor for over 20 years, and I'm here to help you take back your power, advocate for yourself, and have the beautiful pregnancy and birth that you deserve. This podcast is for educational purposes only, and it's not a substitute for medical advice. Check out the full disclaimer at drnicolerankins.com/disclaimer. Now let's get to it. Hey, real quick, before we get into this episode, my new and improved online birth course, The Birth with Power Pathway, is coming in May. If you want to feel calm, confident, and actually prepared for your hospital birth, this is for you. The best way to be the first to know when it drops, join my email list at drnicolerankins.com/email. Hello there. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. This is episode number 261. Whether this is your first time listening or you have been here before, I'm so grateful that you're spending some time with me today. In this episode, we have Nicole. Nicole resides in the Philadelphia suburbs with her husband, daughter, dog, and cat. Formerly employed as a cook in Philadelphia restaurants, she transitioned to running a home baking business during the pandemic, which is currently on hold while she takes care of her sweet baby. On her Instagram account, Curly Coily, she shares content related to curly hair care and aspects of her life as a mom. Nicole went into labor in the evening of her due date. She labored all night at home, and by morning, her contractions were coming every 2 to 3 minutes. She really wanted an unmedicated birth, so she definitely waited a while to go to the hospital. When she went to the hospital and she was admitted, she was stuck at 5 centimeters for 12 hours. You will hear the twists and turns that things took after that in this episode. I will give away that she did have a vaginal birth, but it came about in a way that was nothing like she had planned or anticipated. Now, even though it's possible that things may not go as planned for your birth, that doesn't mean you shouldn't make a birth plan. In fact, a birth plan is what helps you deal with the unpredictability of birth. But you want to be sure your birth plan is done the right way. That's why I've created my free birth plan class, Make a Birth Plan the Right Way. It's happening this month on June 20th. It's live. We get to interact. I stay at the end and do a Q&A where I answer questions for about 30 minutes after the class. Just a lovely opportunity for you to learn how to make a birth plan in a way that helps you have the birth that you actually want. You can sign up for the class at drnicolerankins.com/birth plan. All right, let's get into the birth story episode with Nicole. Thank you so much, Nicole, a fellow Nicole, for agreeing to be on the podcast. I'm excited to have you here and share your birth story.
Thank you for having me, Nicole. This is really so cool since I listened to you my entire pregnancy.
I'm excited. So why don't you start off a bit by telling us a bit about yourself and your family?
So I live in the Philly suburbs with my husband, my daughter, Cecilia, who is 7 months old now. And we also have a hound dog and a cat. I am a professional cook and also own a baking business that was out of my home, currently on pause with that. while I take care of my baby.
Okay.
And I actually met my husband in culinary school.
Oh, isn't that so? Both of you all can cook?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
We are
all
both
right.
chefs. Yes.
Nice. I love it. I love it. So let's get into your birth story. And of course, as you know from listening to the podcast, in order to understand what happens during the pregnancy, during the birth, we got to understand what happens during the pregnancy. So why don't you start off by telling us a bit about what your pregnancy and your prenatal care was like?
My pregnancy was pretty easy.
Okay.
No like major complaints.
Uh-huh.
I did have a lot of nausea in the first trimester. Yeah, that was definitely not fun.
Sure.
But other than that, it wasn't too bad. And then I guess it only got annoying in the third trimester when I had like really swollen legs and ankles and feet. Oh my gosh, it was so bad because I was on my feet all the time.
Oh,
so
yes.
it was just so bad.
Yes.
Like my feet, like I couldn't even recognize them. It was bad.
Yeah. Did you have to buy new shoes?
I did. So I gave birth in September. So I had kind of the whole third trimester was in warm weather. So I got like a pair of these like slides.
Uh-huh.
And that was all I wore.
Yeah.
Like everywhere.
Yes.
Even to my baby shower.
Yeah. It's amazing. Like, unfortunately, people's shoe size can go up a full size even.
Oh man.
Just from the swelling, and you're like, whose legs are these? And baby, get out of my body, because
it was the weirdest. I remember the week after my birth when it finally started to swell down, I was like, I have ankles.
Yes, it is definitely a weird thing when it happens. So then for your prenatal care, did you see a physician? Did you see a midwife? How did that go for you?
Yes, I saw it was a practice of physicians. So I saw, I think, 4 different ones in total, but mainly there was 2 that I switched off on.
Okay.
And one ended up not exactly delivering my baby, but because it was a teaching hospital. So
got it.
One of the students, I forget what they're called.
Residents.
Yes, thank you. One of the residents delivered my baby, and the one that I saw the most ended up overseeing it. So that was cool.
Okay. All right. So the residents weren't involved in the prenatal care, but they were involved in the birth part.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, how did you feel about the care you received during your pregnancy?
I thought it was no major complaints. They seemed to be pretty up to date with the current like practices and evidence. So I was pretty happy about that.
Okay. Good. Did you know that residents were going to be involved in your birth before you got to the hospital?
Yeah. So I did know it was a teaching hospital. And I'm one of those people, like, I just feel like people need to learn.
Right.
So like, absolutely. We'll get to that. But
Okay.
I was saying until I got stitched up and I was like, oh no.
Okay.
I saw my doctor was like teaching her how to do it. And I was like, problem for another time.
We will get to that indeed.
Everything was fine. It was fine.
Gotcha. But it wasn't like a surprise that you knew that. Okay. Good. All right. So, sounds like pregnancy, prenatal care, pretty straightforward, no major issues.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very lucky.
Okay. Good. So then what did you do to prepare for your birth?
Well, first I got a doula.
Okay.
So yes. And I basically just went crazy on research. I listened to podcasts such as yourself. Evidence-based birth is like also my favorite.
Yep.
Listen to that a lot. And followed a ton of people on Instagram, read books. Like I did it all. I just gathered as much information as I could. I also had a birth class with my hospital as well as with my doula.
Okay. All right. So at what point in your pregnancy did you find your doula or hire your doula?
I believe it was like right before the third trimester.
Okay. All right.
I knew I'd wanted one, but then it was just a matter of getting one then.
Gotcha. And how did you feel about all of the education? Did you feel good about things going into your birth?
I was very nervous about the birth process. Like I didn't even want to think about it really until like the third trimester. Like I listened to some stories and some stuff, but I was like, I really like I just don't want to think about it yet. So, the research was to just help me feel like I'm prepared, which I did feel like I was prepared at that point. Yes.
Okay. So what made you decide like, hey, I got to come out of my shell and sort of realize that this human has to come out of my body. So I got to start thinking about it.
I think it was the third trimester. I was like, well, we're here. Like,
got it. Okay. So what are some things that you wanted for your birth experience?
Well, I wanted to go unmedicated. That was my plan.
Okay.
And that was like my biggest thing. I didn't really want a lot of medical intervention. I wanted to birth in a hospital because I was just nervous about, I don't know, anything that could happen. So I figured if anything happens, I'm right there. So there was that. But I was just nervous about side effects to literally everything.
Okay.
I listened to all of your episodes about like induction and the epidural and all this stuff. And I'm like, I would like to try to not get anything.
Okay.
So that was my plan.
Okay. And we'll hear how things ultimately went.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like you wanted to be in the hospital because you like the availability of having anything there if anything happens, but then didn't necessarily want any interventions unless it was necessary, it sounds like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's definitely, I think a lot of people fall into that category for sure. You said you were afraid about things. Was there anything in particular that you were like really scared about when it came to giving birth?
Definitely, as we said, general side effects of things I was worried about. And just like the not knowing of how it would go, like wasn't sure how, like, would I have tearing? Like, would anything happen? Like, I was terrified of having to get a C-section. Like, that was like, I was like, anything that I can do to not get to that point, I will do. And honestly, I was worried about the car ride to the hospital.
Okay. I mean, living in the Philly area, I guess did you worry you'd like get stuck in traffic or anything or just?
Yeah. Well, I was worried about traffic because my hospital is like, could be 25 minutes away, or if it's like during a really busy time, it could be like 50 minutes away.
Okay.
And so I was just like, I don't know.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And I've heard like also like the car ride could slow down things. And I was worried about that as well.
Gotcha. Let's talk about something most pregnant women aren't getting enough of, omega-3 DHA. The recommendation is over 200 milligrams a day, but less than 5% of pregnant women in the U.S. meet that. That's one of the reasons I love Ritual's Essential Prenatal. It has 350 milligrams of vegan DHA, plus other key nutrients like methylated folate and choline to support baby's neural tube development. As an OBGYN, I appreciate that Ritual goes beyond the basics. The formula is science-backed, third-party tested for heavy metals and microbes, and every ingredient is traceable. And the delayed release design, it's gentle on the stomach, something that really matters, especially if there's trouble with nausea during pregnancy. You deserve to know exactly what you're putting into your body, especially when it comes to prenatal multivitamins. And with Ritual's dedication to traceable science and sourcing, you always will. See for yourself with 25% off your first month at ritual.com/Dr. Nicole. Start Ritual or add Essential Prenatal to your subscription today. That's ritual.com/Dr. Nicole for 25% off your first month. All right, so then let's get into what happened with your labor and birth experience. How did things start?
So it started I was due on September 11th.
Okay.
And once we finally hit that date, I was like, I didn't really want her to be born on that day. But once we were in the afternoon, I was like, okay, we're ready. Like, let's get this going. Because I did not want to get induced.
Sure. And I was going to ask, had your doctor brought up induction at all?
Yeah. So I had a doctor's appointment that morning. And they were like, well, like we can schedule an induction date for the following week. And I was just like, I really don't want to do that. So they were like, all right, well, wait a few days and then call us and then we'll see. And I was just like, I don't want to get to that point at all. I was like, I will do literally anything. I was like thinking like, okay, if I don't give birth, it was on a Monday. So I was like, if I don't give birth by Wednesday, I'm going to go find like an acupuncture. I was like,
you were going to do all of it. Yes.
Yes. So I ended up that day, my husband got home from work. We took a very long walk. And then, are you familiar with the mile circuit? So I ended up doing that. If anyone doesn't know, it's just like a few like movements. They're not really hard.
Yeah.
It's supposed to get the baby in like the right position to get things going. So I did that. And then like a couple hours later, I started getting contractions.
Okay.
Oh, so I actually had like a lot of Braxton Hicks prior, like I think it was like 2 months before my due date. I started to get them like really bad because I was on my feet a lot also.
Sure.
So I had a few like, is this it? Like a couple weeks prior. But this time it was like, this was actually it. I ended up, so that was around, I think 9:00 when that happened.
Okay. And then wasn't there a big difference in between, oh, I thought that might've been it before and like, this is it? Didn't you have that aha moment? Like, oh, okay, this is what they mean.
Yes. It is definitely, I had a lot of like tightening of the stomach and like during the Braxton Hicks and everything. But like, this was like very different. I also had a lot of like, it was like light, like cramping. I guess like up to a week prior that it started. And I feel like it was like a mixture of the cramping and like the tightening that was like really, and then stopping. It definitely was different.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so that started around 9. And then I was like, all right, let's go to bed. So I tried to get some sleep. I think I slept for 2 hours.
Okay.
Before I was like, all right, I can't. So I just got up and let my husband like hang for a little bit. And I don't know what I did. I feel like I went downstairs and just like did dishes or like, I don't know. And I was timing it on an app on my phone. And it had started, I think it was around 4 a.m. They were like getting a little close. So I like called my doula and I was like, this is what's going on. Or I texted her, I think. And I was like, this is what's going on. And she's like, all right, let me know when things progress more. And then around 6 a.m., my contractions were coming. Like, I know there's like the 411 or 511, depending on how far you are from the hospital. And my contractions were very weird. So they were coming in 2 to 3 minutes apart, but only lasting around 50 seconds. So I was like, not quite a minute, but 2 to 3 minutes apart. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I do not want to have a car birth. So
sure.
That's exactly where mine went. I was like, I don't know what is going on. I've never done this before. So I was like, I don't know. So I called my doula and she was like, I don't know. I don't think you're in active labor yet, but I would maybe call your doctor and see what she has to say. Cause she was like, yeah, I haven't really dealt with anyone that was like that. So I don't know. So I call my doctor and she's like, okay, that's interesting. Like, how about you come in? We'll get you checked out. And then if it's not time, we'll just let you go home for a few hours and you can come back. So I'm like, okay, cool.
Yep.
So I did not rush to the hospital because another thing I was like worried about, I didn't want to go in too early. That was like, I've heard all these things. If you don't want to be medicated, it's like best to wait till the very last, the last second to go in. Not the last second, but
Yeah.
because they start ticking down the time once you're there. So I was trying to avoid that, but I was just really like, I don't know, 2 to 3 minutes apart. That's like, what is happening? So we took our time to get to the hospital. I did not like the car ride. It was fine though. I was getting in the zone. I was like, let's just, it was very uncomfortable though. And then we got there and I was brought into triage, and like right away they hooked me up to the baby monitor and the what is it actually called? Like baby monitor. Like,
No, I mean, yeah, fetal monitor. Yeah.
Is that what it? Fetal monitor. Yeah, sure. So I had the monitor on, and then like I don't even know what happened. It was just like so fast. It was like they were like, "Oh, huh," and then I had all of like a team of nurses. There was like 10 of them that just like rushed all in, and then everyone's poking and prodding. And they're like, all right, well, you just had, your baby had a little like heart rate dip with that last contraction. It was like as soon as I got there. And so they were like hooking me up to like, they were like getting an IV in me. And I was like, what is going on? Because I didn't even want an IV. I wanted the saline lock so that they could access it, but I didn't want it right away. But there was no talks of birth plan yet. There was just like, I just got there.
Right.
And it was just like, yeah, they're like taking blood. They're like taking my blood pressure, doing all this stuff. And, I don't know what that was, but it happened.
Okay. I mean, then I'm guessing the baby's heart rate was low when they put you on the monitor, and then they were trying to do some things to get it back up. But I think we don't always do the best job of explaining all the things that we're doing.
I think I know what happened, which is related to like some stuff later in the story. But for now, we'll just leave it there. So it was just crazy. They rushed in, and then they were like, well, I think because of that, we're not going to let you go home. And I was like, oh, so like I was at a 4. Yeah, I was at 4 centimeters at that point. Cause, so they checked in whatever. They're like, but we'll keep you because
the baby's heart
just
rate
to make sure
dropped.
everything's going fine.
Yeah.
So I was like, dang, like now I'm stuck here. So we were in this like teeny tiny room too. It was like, it was not ideal, but eventually they moved us to a bigger room before even we were in our, like, they waited a while to bring us to an actual labor and delivery room.
Mm-hmm.
I guess because they knew nothing really was going on. So yeah, I just kind of labored in the hospital for a while, and I was like pretty chill. And at this point, like my contractions actually had slowed down a lot. So at some point, I guess from getting to the hospital and all that stuff, I guess, I don't know. It was just, we slowed down. So we just kind of were chilling. I was sneaking snacks. I didn't even ask. I was like, they probably would let me at this point, but I was like, I'm not even going to ask. I'm just going
to have a little get a little energy.
Yes. So after all that, we went through my birth preferences. They were able to take my IV out.
Okay.
Which was really nice for that time. Cause I did want to move around, and actually like, I was finding just like swaying through the contractions were like really helpful for me. If like, I did not want to stay still at all. That was like not going to work. So then I think it was about 4 hours later or so. Okay. We were just hanging out there when they came in and they checked me again. And at that point I was 5 centimeters dilated. Okay. 70% effaced. And -3 station. Okay. Now this is important. This is very important information for this story. So we were like, okay, we're getting somewhere. And we continue on. Another, I don't know, 4 hours or so went by of just doing the thing. And they came in and checked again. And I was 5 centimeters, 70% effaced, and -3. Okay. My contractions had also slowed down to like 7 to 8 minutes apart. Okay. Yeah. So at this point, I actually had 2 doctors that had like come in and out that were like telling me like, hey, like the first one came in and was like, hey, so this has been going a little while. You might want to think about speeding it up, whether that's pitocin or breaking your waters, because of the risk of infection from me being in labor, which I was like, I've done enough research that I know like, no.
Yeah.
So I was like, no, I'm good.
Right.
I'm good. We're just going to do this. Yeah, at this point, it was like, they were like, I didn't know any of these doctors. So they were, I think one was definitely a resident and
Okay.
the other one, because it was all like whoever was there at the time. So I was just like, I'm good. And I had the best nurse. I had two really awesome nurses through the labor process. She was like spinning babies certified.
Yep.
So she knew this stuff. And then, my doula actually hadn't gotten there yet because we were just going to wait until I'm in active labor, like till things are really moving along for her to get there. So I think we were like 2:00 or something. She's going to come down and be with us.
Sure.
And so all these doctors were coming in before she had even gotten there. And I was like, no, like, leave me alone. I'm good. And then not too long after the first doctor came in, the next one came in and was like, so you actually qualify for gestational hypertension. And I was like, what? And they said that I guess I had 2 high blood pressures within like a 4-hour period that would then qualify me for it. So they were like, I would suggest that you do something to move it along. And I was like, I really don't want to do those things. I was like, can we just wait till my doula gets here and we figure out what we want to do? And they're like, all right. So I think I had like an hour to wait or something before she got there. And, but my nurse was actually like, she's like, your blood pressure has been perfect since you've been here, like in her room. So she was just like, I don't know what's up with that. Looking back, I'm assuming when I got to the hospital and I had all that crazy stuff going on, that was when I probably had the high blood pressures.
Sure.
And would that cause my baby's heart rate to drop?
Shouldn't.
If I had high blood?
No.
It would, I don't know. There was like something, someone said there was like a correlation, but I don't know. But I was like, I don't know. And like her heart rate was also fine the rest of the time. So I don't know. Whatever happened when I first got there, I don't know. But I'm assuming that is what probably caused the high blood pressure.
Yeah, just the stress of having so many people come in and all of a sudden and what's happening for sure. Yeah.
And also, the doctor that I had the following day after I'd given birth was like, she actually like said to me like, oh, like, you know, you're probably fine. You were in like the gray area of the high blood pressure. I was like, but it is what it is. So they were trying to get me to move things along for all these reasons. And then, so when my doula finally showed up, we were just like, okay, let's try. We were like, give us an hour to do like movement and try some things with the nurse who is spinning babies certified. So we were like, let's try to work it out and see if we can get it going ourselves. So we tried some things. We did some crazy, like exorcist looking, I don't know what it was. I was like holding on to the bars and they like dropped the bottom of the bed. So my legs were like hanging.
Yeah.
And I'd like hold on for dear life with my arms. That was very difficult through a contraction, but also I was like, I feel kind of like a badass.
Right.
Like,
absolutely.
So we did all that and an hour goes by and they come in to check me again. And I was still 5 centimeters,
Okay.
70% and -3. And I was like, okay. All right. So we were like, all right, let's figure out what the like best way of doing this. It's like, I definitely didn't want my water broke. So we were like, let's do a little bit of pitocin, whatever the lowest dose is. Cause I did all this research and I was like, I know that pitocin is going to be painful and that's not exactly what you want when you're trying to go for an unmedicated birth.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
So I go in we are at the last 4 hours of it at this point.
Okay.
So I went on the low dose of pitocin. Everything got a little bit worse. We were like, I was breathing through it. I was also like, in the zone. Like I was really, I felt like I was doing really well.
Right.
My nurses were like, oh, I have a good feeling about this one. Like, she's doing really well with your breathing. And so I was like, I'm going to do this. But yeah, so we did 2 hours of the low dose of pitocin. They were like, we want your contractions to be, my contractions started to get closer together. They're like, we want them a little bit more close. So they're like, can we do just like one notch up? And I'm like, sure, fine. Like, I've got this so far. Let's just, whatever. Right. So we upped the pitocin a little bit, and then, it gets horrible. It gets pretty bad. So my contractions were getting pretty bad, and I was still, I was moving through it. We were doing counter pressure and all of that stuff. And I also found it was very comfortable to labor on the toilet.
Okay.
Which is, I know, something I had heard a lot from listening to other podcasts and everything, but that was very comfortable.
Like sitting backwards or sitting forwards on the toilet?
Just sitting forwards, just like literally even just like, because I would empty my bladder, because having anything in me was like, it felt horrible. I was like, I don't want get it all out.
Right.
So I would just sit there for a little bit longer, and I'd be like, all right, this is fine for like a little bit. So on the 12th hour of waiting at 5 centimeters, at the 12th hour, that was hour 4 of pitocin. I was sitting on the toilet. I peed, and then I was like, I finished, right? And then I heard like a trickle of like a little gush trickle of fluid.
Right.
And I was like, I know that's not pee because I just peed.
Right.
So we were like, oh my gosh, my water just broke.
Okay.
Right? Like, this was great news for us, because we were like waiting for something to like signal that this was moving along.
Right.
So we're like, all right, this is it. We're all feeling good about it. They're like, all right, let's like test it to make sure. My nurse like tests like does like a little test and was like, yeah, like it looks like it probably is. And then like the doctor came in and checked me and was like, oh no, your water didn't break. I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? So what we think happened was my doula was saying that it's like possible that it could break somewhere other than the bottom.
Yeah. It can be a high,
and then it trickles out.
Yeah.
And then the head, and then the head probably corked it, so that when the doctor's looking, it's like, looks like it's not broken, but it really did. So that's what probably happened. But yeah, so she checked that. She was like, your water didn't break. And we're like, all right, well, how far along are we? Because at this time I was like, I've got to be at like a 7 because of the pain. I was like, it's getting like so painful. I was like, it's at a 7. I was like, even a 6, whatever, it's fine. But I was like, 7, I can do this. Almost to transition. I can do this, like whatever. And then they came back and were like, it is you're 5 centimeters, 70%, and -3. Okay. And I was like, what do you mean?
Right.
I was like, I don't know. I just lost it. I was like, like, what am I supposed to do? There's like nothing, like I'm in so much pain. Nothing is happening.
Right.
And it's only going to get worse from there. So they're like, what do you want to do? I was like, just give me a minute, everyone. So I went to the bathroom with my husband, and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like, listening to a lot of podcasts and everything, I like heard a lot. It's like a lot of people saying like, is it pain or is it like suffering? Right. And I was like, at that point where I was like, I feel like now, like we are getting into the suffering part of this. 'Cause that was 12 hours of being at a 5
Sure.
and nothing happening, and not including the time before. So I was like, I can't. So I was like, I think I'm going to get an epidural.
Okay.
And my husband was like, okay. And we both cried for like 5 minutes in the bathroom. Which it's so weird, but like it was one of the most beautiful parts of my birth.
Right.
Because I was just like, I felt so seen, like he knew how much I wanted to. And it was just like, I don't know, I felt very supported
Right.
in my decision. And yeah, it was, I don't know, it was just really special.
Well, that's good. You know what? Let me
Yeah.
ask, how were they doing your monitoring? Were you able to, it sounds like you were able to get up and move around.
Yeah.
Did you have a wireless monitor?
I didn't. I wanted one. Apparently the hospital that I was at, all of the hospitals in that group, they had gotten them in 2020, right before the pandemic happened.
Okay.
And they were the last hospital to get them, and they just never did.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
Okay. But it does sound like you were able to still get up and move around though. So were they just like moving the monitor with
We did kind of like in an intermittent.
Okay. Got it.
So I like wore it for a little bit and then it would take off. They like made sure that they had it on me for a little bit. But yeah, that was one of the things that I wanted. I was like, I want to, because I was just like, I want to move.
Sure. Okay. Sorry. I didn't mean that, just kind of popped into my head there. So, so you made the decision to get the epidural, and it's really nice that you felt seen, supported, validated, and like you were making the best choice for yourself in the moment.
Yes. So one of the other things I was nervous about was getting the epidural, because I knew you had to be like extremely still, which I was not having any of it. So the anesthesiologist came in, and who was like, he was great. This guy was awesome. I was like, how long do you think this is going to take? Because I was like, I don't know how long I can sit still.
Right.
And he was like, well, it could be like 10 minutes, could be 20. It really depends on your back. And I was like, oh my God, like, I don't think I could do that, but all right, we'll see. And then he put it in. It was like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, not even, like, it was nothing. I think I had like maybe 1 to 2 contractions during that time. I was like, it was not bad.
Yeah. Sometimes a good anesthesiologist, I swear they come in and they're just like, do, and it's just in. And it's like, oh, thank God.
It was crazy. It was crazy. I was so happy for that in that moment. And then once it started working, I had a great epidural as far as like feeling like I couldn't feel anything. And oh my gosh, it was such a nice break in the moment. I feel like I couldn't stop smiling. Everyone's like, how you doing? I'm like, I'm so great. Like, yes, that was a big selling point, we'll say, to get the epidural, was that I was like, at least I can get some rest to prepare for pushing, right? Well, not for me. So what would happen once I got the epidural, I would lay on my back, baby's heart rate would drop. They'd move me to my side, heart rate would drop again, move me to the other side. It'd be okay for like 2 minutes each time they moved me. Heart rate would drop again, and then I'd end up on all fours. So I was on all fours with an epidural, so I couldn't feel my legs.
Right.
It was a little challenging. I really felt like I had a really great arm workout that whole day. So, but I was on all fours for a lot of it. But then every time that they had to come check my blood pressure or monitor them, because you can't monitor my contractions when you're in that position because of the way that I guess the spring works. So they'd have to put me back on my back.
Oh.
And then baby's heart rate would drop. They'd move me to my side. It would drop again. They'd move me to my other side. It'd drop again. And I'd go on all fours. And this was over and over and over the entire night.
Oh, Okay.
They're literally attached to like 800 things. So like
Yeah.
they had to keep taking both. Every time they moved me, they would have to take all of the stuff off and then put it all back on. And you needed like a couple people to like help turn me because I can't feel my legs. So
Right.
that was basically how it all went. And the next time they checked me, I was at a 6.
Okay.
It was like, it just like from there, it just
went.
just moved right along.
Okay.
Yes.
So how long do you think in between when you got the epidural and then when you were ready to push, when you were completely dilated?
It was, I really have no idea. I know it literally was like, I don't know what we had like a terrible storm outside that night apparently. And I was just like, I don't know, but this was like all night when this was happening.
Okay.
So I'm not sure, but like, it was like every time they came in and checked me, it was like, I'm 1 more centimeter dilated until I got to like 8. And then the next one I was at a 10.
Okay. Okay.
It was like, It was crazy how quickly it went, like in comparison to the 12 hours being stuck at a 5. Like it was insane.
Right.
And I've actually heard from like some like doulas and other health professionals that have just been like, oh yeah, sometimes like I've seen that where like someone is really stalled and then they get an epidural and it actually speeds things up.
Yeah. So then how long did you end up pushing?
About 2 hours.
Okay, that's not bad.
No. So my epidural actually, it like ran out when I started pushing.
Okay.
So, which I'm sure some people would be upset about that, but I was happy because I was very worried about not being able to push or be pushing for like 3 hours, 4 hours, and then like end up like C-section situation. Sure. So I was actually very happy about that. So it started wearing off when I first started pushing, and the nurse though, she like I didn't really want to have like coached pushing because I wanted to kind of figure it out myself, and she was like, "That's not how we do it," and like just like I don't know, she was kind of a bully, but yeah. So I was not really happy about that. Yeah. And I was just like, I was just like, get this out of me. Like I couldn't even like, I was like, I don't even want to deal with you. Right. Like I'll just do whatever because I don't feel like I can't even think about like saying anything to you at this point. So I was just like, whatever. So yeah, it definitely took a little bit for me to figure out how to push because she's like, hold your breath. And I was like, every time I do that, it was like, felt like my eyes were going to pop out of my head. So I was like, this is not working. And yeah, so I just had to kind of figure out how to breathe myself while pushing. And then I didn't want to push on my back either. And she was also kind of trying to get me to do that. And I was like, no, like I don't want to. So I ended up going back on all fours, and she's like, oh, you can't do all fours like since you have an epidural. And I was like, I was on all fours all night. Right. So she's like, all right, you can try it. And I'm like, I will. My God. Right. So yeah, it was like just crazy, like night and day from the like the 2 nurses I had before. And then this one, but I actually felt like on all fours was like the most comfortable. But then I was there for a little bit and they're like, all right, we need to like switch it up to get things going, whatever. So I ended up going on my back, but they like lifted the bed up a little bit. So it was like, I always said like throne position. I don't know. It was not as comfortable as being on all fours, but I was like, at that point, I was like, whatever. It was funny. It's like the only time I yelled at my husband the whole like labor. It was like, and it's a funny situation because I was pushing out this head, which I knew is what I was doing because I kept seeing everybody's face because we had, I don't know, we had a couple nurses, the doctor, we had a resident, then we had a student who was just observing in the room. So there's a lot of people. Sure. And every time I would push, it was like this, like they all would start cheering and they'd be like once the head was coming out, they were all like I could see in their face how excited they were getting. And I
Right.
knew what was happening in every push. I'd be like, this is the last one.
Right.
And then it wouldn't be. And I was getting so frustrated. And so one of those pushes, my husband just turns to me and he's like, she's almost here. Like her head's right there. It's like, and I was like, I freaking know what's going on. And he was like, sorry. So, yeah, but at this point, cause I didn't have my epidural. Like at that point, I feel like it was like, I could feel everything.
Right.
I felt everything.
Okay.
I felt the ring of fire.
Right.
And something I did not want and did not even, this was like probably the one thing that I was just like, absolutely not about my birth was, I did not get a warm compress.
Okay.
I instead got a perineum massage.
Okay.
When the head was coming out.
Okay.
Which they were just like, oh, this is a perineum massage. It'll help help prevent tearing, which like I listen to evidence-based birth, and I know that isn't really, that is not necessarily true. So, but it was the most painful thing. Like it was the worst part of my birth. It was so bad.
Right.
So would not recommend.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really painful. And at that point, like, I remember just like, I couldn't even push effectively anymore because it was just like, I was so distracted by how much it hurt.
Right.
I was like, I can't and I couldn't even figure out how to say anything out loud. Cause anyways, it was horrible. Did not like that. But once the head did come out, that was amazing. Yeah, she was born. So we went for a time frame. We went to the hospital, I think around 8:00 in the morning on the 12th. And then she was born at 9:49 on the 13th.
Okay.
So that's how long all of this was happening.
Got it.
Yes. I'm like, I don't know how long everything took. But
right. But that, yes.
Time frame.
Yes. And then did they do delayed cord clamping and skin to skin contact?
We did skin to skin. We did delayed cord clamping. We had our nice golden hour.
Okay. Good.
Which was like so special. Except for the nurse at one point when I was just letting my baby, do the breast crawl to see if she would just latch on her own. Cause I just wanted to see if she would do it, before helping her out. And this woman just comes over and just like, oh, you have to shove it in her mouth. And I was just like,
okay, give me okay. Okay. She just was not great. Sounds like
she was not on the same page with me, and she did not ask.
Okay.
Yeah, not happy about that. But the rest of the golden hour was wonderful.
Okay. Oh, let me ask, how was it, the stitches, and did they do numbing medicine?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they did have to numb it because I could feel it at the time. And I had a 2nd degree tear.
Okay.
And they're not terrible, not the best.
That's not bad for first baby. That's pretty typical. So
yes. So so the resident who ended up delivering my baby, she also sewed me up, and it was fine. It was fine. I just had that one moment where I was like, oh no. And my doctor had been like, so next you. And I was like,
gotcha.
It's fine.
I can totally understand that. Yeah, I can totally understand that. And then what was the rest of the postpartum period like for you?
Well, the first 3 weeks were very hard because, so the second day that she was here, my daughter, her blood sugar dropped.
Okay.
Just randomly. And they decided they were going to give her donor milk.
Okay.
To try to bring it back up, which in hindsight, I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that I should have just pumped for them, because after that I ended up having to pump, and I was pumping 5 milliliters of colostrum,
right?
Which apparently is a lot. And so it was a whole thing. But after she was given that bottle, she ended up having flow confusion and nipple confusion. And she would kind of latch, but she wouldn't suck anymore.
Okay.
And so we were stuck giving her bottles while I pumped.
Got it.
And the lactation consultants in the hospital, like, I feel like they just didn't have enough time for me.
Okay.
And like the one literally before we left, she's like, it'll probably get better once your milk comes in this weekend. She'll probably figure it out. And I was like, oh, that's not what happened.
Okay.
But one of the best things that my doula did for me was while I was in labor, she was like, do you have a lactation consultant set up when you go home? And I was like, no. And she was like, let's do that right now. So she went on the lactation network and basically just like took my insurance card, got all my information, filled it out for me. So I didn't even have to think about it. And then the next day I got an email from a lactation consultant that took my insurance. Like, I didn't even have to do anything.
Okay. Nice.
So it ended up working out perfectly because when these things came up, I just made an appointment for, so this was, we left on Friday and I had a lactation consultant come to my house on that Monday.
Okay. And then did that help? Did that help with resolving the breastfeeding issues?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, we had such a horrible time the first 3 weeks because we couldn't get it figured out. The lactation consultant came twice a week for those 3 weeks.
Okay.
And we tried everything. We did like nipple shield, syringe, little tiny feeding tube. We did a bait and switch technique with the pacifier. Like, we did everything. And on the third week, something just like clicked and my daughter figured it out.
Okay.
And it was really crazy.
Nice. Well,
And I'm still breastfeeding her.
Okay.
So
Well, good.
yes.
So then overall, how do you feel about your birth experience?
I definitely have mixed feelings on some of the aspects, but overall, I feel pretty good about it. We got my daughter here safely. Nothing really crazy happened. Like,
Right.
it was, I was able to make a lot of decisions, like educated decisions, because I made sure that I educated myself.
Sure.
Essentially.
Absolutely.
So I felt really good about the choices that were given to me. And like, when I was like, no, we're not doing anything. And when I decided to have some intervention.
Right.
And I definitely do not regret getting the epidural.
Okay.
I think I definitely made the best decision given the circumstances
Absolutely.
that I had.
Yeah.
And so with that, I feel pretty good.
Okay. Then what is your one favorite piece of advice that you would give to someone who's getting ready to have a baby right now?
Definitely educate yourself. Definitely. It is very important so that you can make these informed decisions, but also keep an open mind and know that like nothing is going to be set in stone. You know, your preferences might change. Just make sure you know, like, you educate yourself on all of the choices that you have so that when and if the situations come up, you can make an informed decision.
Absolutely.
And also get yourself a lactation consultant before you give birth.
Yes.
Have one lined up because I cannot explain to you like how, if I hadn't done that, like, it would have been so stressful to do while I had my baby who like wasn't feeding well.
Right.
And it made all of the difference.
Gotcha. Love it. So then where can women connect with you? You can say nowhere.
I'm on Instagram at Curly Coley. Okay. I share some curly hair tips, and now I'm doing some mom stuff.
Okay.
But I'm not as active as I used to be. But but I'm there.
Okay. All right. We will link that in the show notes. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to come and share your story. I think it's representative of how there's some not so good parts, but there's also some really beautiful parts. And that's kind of how birth often works, quite honestly. So,
yes, definitely.
and actually parenting, even as, that theme continues into parenting for sure.
I definitely feel that.
Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing your story.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. This has been really nice.
Okay, wasn't that a great episode? I'm so glad Nicole came on and shared her story. And after every episode, I do something called Dr. Nicole's Notes, where I talk about takeaways from the conversation. And here are my Dr. Nicole's notes from my birth story episode with Nicole. I keep getting confused because we both have the same name. All right, number 1. Social media can kind of glamorize birth sometimes, but honestly, I think most birth falls into the category of there are some good parts and there are some not as good parts. And overall, it's a good experience. There's just going to be some bumps along the way. One of the ways to prepare for that and ride that unpredictability of birth, of course, is childbirth education. I have an option with my childbirth education class, the birth preparation course. You can check it out at drnicolerankins.com/enroll. But I encourage everyone to do some sort of childbirth education. There are many options out there. Just find something that works for you. Okay, next thing I want to say is that one of the best tools in our toolbox for helping with labor is time. Labor just takes time, especially to get into what's called the active part of labor. So 6 centimeters or later, from 0 to 6 centimeters can take some time. Now it can feel frustrating because it takes so long and you're like, oh my God, I'm never going to be over with this. But once you get past 6 centimeters, then things generally pick up. So don't think that just because the first part took so long that the last part is going to take so long, because that's not the case. But in general, one of the best tools in our toolbox is time. Sometimes that time may be waiting at home for as long as you can and wait until those contractions are really uncomfortable, really painful, really where you cannot talk through them before you go to the hospital. Our general sort of guidelines are 5 minutes apart or less for an hour. They're lasting a minute. That's like the bare minimum. Okay. Bare minimum for when labor may be starting. And when we say for an hour, it's those contractions need to be intense for an hour. If they start to get intense and then they go back down in intensity, then the clock starts over again. Okay, it really needs to be consistently all intense for an hour. So time both before you get to the hospital and then time even after you get to the hospital are going to be some of the biggest tools in our toolbox. And of course, I have to say, like, everybody's going to be different. Listen to your own body. If things tell you to go to the hospital quicker, then do so. But in general, you want to give things some time. And then the last thing is I just want to piggyback on that really important point that she said of pain versus suffering during labor. Pain is a normal part of labor. Most people will experience contractions as painful, but she was so right to say that no one should have to suffer during the labor process. And if it is to the point where you are suffering, then an epidural may be the right thing to do, even if that was not part of your initial plans. Because although you may be in pain during labor, really no one should be suffering. And as you heard in her story, sometimes an epidural can actually help speed labor up. It can just help you relax, help you get some rest, help that labor happen in the background. And it can actually help speed labor up if things have been slowing down. So an epidural isn't necessarily the enemy. And again, you just should not be suffering during labor. All right, so there you have it. Please share this podcast with a friend. Also, subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening to me right now. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, wherever it is. Please subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And I would love it if you left me a review in Apple Podcast. I love to hear those reviews. I love to hear what you think about the show. And I use those reviews to do shout outs from time to time in episodes. Do come join me in my free birth plan class, Make a Birth Plan the Right Way. That's drnicolerankins.com/birth plan. It is a great class. Next live class is happening on June 20th. So that's it for this episode. Do come on back next week and remember that you deserve a beautiful pregnancy and birth.
Hi, I'm Kristen Bell. Carvana makes car buying easy. Isn't that right, hun? Dax?
Sorry, did you know about this 7-day money-back guarantee?
A week to evaluate seat comfiness, you say?
A week of terrain tests? Yeah, I can test the brake pad resistance at variable speeds.
Make sure all the kids' stuff fits nicely.
Make sure our stuff fits nicely.
Oh,
Right. Still need to buy the car. Getting ahead of ourselves here.
Buy your car with Carvana today.